This is Dharma Drops with your host, Rebecca Warfield. This podcast is a little bit about yoga, a little bit about life, and a little bit about whatever. And just as a warning, this podcast is unscripted, so that means I might regret a few things that I say. But hey, maybe I'll say some pretty awesome stuff too. Remember, these are musings, not truths. Buckle up, giddy up, because here we go. Oh, hey there, Dharma Drops listeners. It's me, your host of Dharma Drops podcast, Rebecca Warfield, and you're going to hear me say that again when we get into the actual episode for today. But in any case, hi. It is your mini drop episode for Wednesday, July 8th, 2020. And I'm really excited for this episode today because I am talking with my friend, Kia Williams. And we'll share a little bit about how we met each other in the actual episode itself. But I met Kia about a year ago here in Wilmington when she was in town. She was hosting the Bar Above training that I took. And we tried to schedule a recording then, but we couldn't get our schedules aligned. And we tried another time and it didn't get worked out, but we got it. We did it. It only took a year and we did it. So I'm really excited to have her on the podcast today. But before we get into her episode, I do want to let you know about a few happenings around Dharma Drops. First, on the Dharma Drops Yoga On Demand site, all month long, guest teacher Kristen Nice is offering classes that are revealing and uncovering the koshas. If you're not familiar with what the koshas are, one, you can learn more in her classes, but two, the koshas are part of the subtle body system. They're the layers of the body that start on the outermost physical layer and then move into the more subtle layers of the body, ultimately leading to the self. Now, they're not the chakra system, but it is part of the subtle body system. So if you're into the whole chakra biz, you'd probably really like these subtle body classes. She's offering 2 classes a week on the Dharma Drops Yoga On Demand site. The first class each week is a longer sequence that focuses on asana, a little bit of vinyasa. When I say vigorous, I don't mean like an advanced yoga class, but there's a little more movement involved with those classes. Then the second class of the week is a short class, 10, 12, 8-ish minutes, pretty short, that is more energetically aligned. So pranayama, she did some really cool like tapping stuff, tapping on the thymus, that kind of stuff. So pretty cool stuff happening on the Dharma Drops Yoga On Demand site. So be sure to check it out. And included with that, you also get a set of 5 journal prompts that you can use to track your work that you've been doing on the mat all month long. So you can find out more about that at dharmadropspodcast.com. Just hover over virtual studio. You'll see the on-demand link there. Lastly, before we get into the episode, I have some beautiful new jewelry in the shop from Rachel Kinsey Designs. These are handmade and hand-dyed pieces of jewelry. So she has all these beautiful fibers and different textiles that she uses that she hand dyes using things like indigo, pomegranate, all sorts of really cool things to dye the fabrics. And then she attaches them to brass and with crystals and all sorts of cool stuff. So you can check them out in the shop at dharmadropspodcast.com. There'll be some new goodies coming soon in the shop too, but for now, enjoy all of the new jewelry. And I wanted to let you know that I'm getting very low on the smudge sticks. So if you do want a smudge stick, be sure to get them. I think I only have maybe like 6 or 8 left or so. They are going, almost gone. So be sure to get them. But I don't want to eat up more of your time because I want you to hear all the cool stuff that Kia Williams has to say. So with that in mind, let's get into today's mini drop episode with Kia Williams. Enjoy the episode. Hey, Dharma Drops listeners, it's me, your host of Dharma Drops podcast, and I am here with Kia Williams, master fitness educator, yoga teacher, and host of Fit and Fierce on the Mic podcast. How's it going, Kia?
Everything's going swell. How are you?
I'm so well, thank you, as well as can be, considering the the year that
Yeah,
we've been having.
right. I know, considering.
Yeah. So I'm really excited to have you here. We have been trying to make this work for, I think, a year. For those of you listening, Kia was my bar master trainer last year here in Wilmington, North Carolina. And at that time, we had tried to schedule a recording together and we couldn't seem to get it to work, but we finally got it. So I'm really happy to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of conversation today, I'd like to just check in with you and see how things are going. I know it's been a whirlwind of a year. How's it going?
Absolutely. It has been. And I think that I am conditioned to always say, I'm fine. I'm good. Everything's great. And in actuality, I am having a very good day. So you caught me on one of my better days. And I try really hard to live in those better moments because that feeds my soul. It has been quite a year, honestly, quite a lifetime with the global pandemic that has hit and transitions and jobs and the times within our lives. And then, of course, the political state of our nation and the very much needed shift in racial inequality. We're seeing progression, hopefully sustainable progression. So,
Hmm.
all in all, I'm truly optimistic. I'm incredibly inspired and wildly engaged with everything that's happening around us. And so truly, I can say I am doing well. Thank you for
I'm
asking.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that you're doing well. It has been quite a year, but I when you say that you're feeling engaged, I've been seeing that on social media. It seems like you're doing a lot of stuff. Like you were on the news recently too, weren't you?
I was,
Yeah.
yeah. Many opportunities have been coming out. And I think it has a lot to do with how we've all pivoted our businesses and our outreach. I am doing a lot more speaking gigs and engaging with consumers and followers and friends on social media. So that's broadened my brand. That news stations all the way in Dallas, Texas. Right now, I'm located in Denver, Colorado, but a
Mm.
news station in Dallas, Texas reached out and said, "Hey, we like what you're doing. Do you have time to talk yoga with us on the news?" So I had a 3-minute spot talking yoga.
That's awesome. I know I watched it and I've seen a lot of things that you've been doing, and it's really inspiring to see all that you have been doing, especially amidst everything that's happening. I think it's really easy, to just say like, I've actually been feeling this a little bit myself, kind of easy to be like, I just need to take a break for a second. So
Yeah.
so it's nice just to see that you are like pivoting with the needs of, the nation and the fitness and wellness community. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. I do too. And
Mhm.
I think that's something that I learned. I know that's something that I learned due to the stay at home mandate is to slow down. I mean, in the many years that I've been involved in fitness service providing, I'm bouncing from here, there, studio to studio, gym to gym, rush hour traffic, and to be told, made, which is quite uncomfortable, was quite uncomfortable, made to stay at home. Um,
Mhm.
I transitioned and I was able to really dive into my own being and check in with my star player, who's myself, uh, and just to make sure that I was all right. And I really took note and inventory of things that was not all right in my life. And I made better decisions and better changes. And due to that, I am so much more in love with life. I've always been a lover of life and wellness and, interacting with others. But it's some things that I will never take for granted now that I've looked at life through a different lens.
Yeah, I think that's been sort of maybe I can't speak for everyone, but I do think that's been somewhat of a collective experience. You know,
Yeah.
having this like requirement to pause and really evaluate what's important, what we want to leave behind and carry with us into
Mhm.
the new normal, whatever that means. And I think that's been really important and not necessarily easy work to do, but really important work that I think otherwise would have been forgotten.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Really important work.
For sure. So, one thing I actually don't know about you that I'm sure the Dharma Drops audience would love to hear is how you came into this passion of fitness and yoga.
Absolutely. I actually was introduced to yoga as a teenager in high school. I was a competitive athlete and I had strength and conditioning coaches and I played on different leagues and I experienced a really bad injury with a broken foot and ankle
Mm.
my senior year in high school. So going through physical therapy and rehabilitation, I learned about different modalities that I just wasn't privy to with my one lane of being an athlete. And so I came into contact with yoga, fell completely in love with how it made me feel mentally and physically. As a teenager, I went through what a lot of teenagers go through with insecurities
Mhm.
and bullying and just not recognizing and understanding what are these feelings that I'm having? What are these thoughts? And just engaging in yoga it was an awakening for me that, I was really interested in following that route. So I started following other yoga teachers, asking more questions, and allowing myself to be mentored. And one of my actual volleyball coaches allowed me to start leading the volleyball team through yoga practices. And that was my first introduction to yoga for athletes. So I started doing it with other sport teams. And then years later, I worked with Human Kinetics on books on yoga for athletes and yoga motivation. So it took off from there. It took me some time to I guess, save up money to get my 200 hour, but eventually I did. And so I've been on my yoga journey as a student, practicing yogi and a yoga teacher for about 15 years now. So
Wow.
it's been absolutely amazing. But sports, my engagement in sports was sort of my gateway into fitness. It was just easy transferable skills that I developed at a very young age. And then being in the gym setting when I was rehabilitating from injury and stumbling upon a group fitness class. And I'm like, wait a minute. Nobody ever told me that this is what goes down in the gym. Like, y'all only brought me to the weight rooms. Like, this is where the party's at. So just through, investing my own time and energy, and it piqued my interest, it just took off from there. Honestly, it was just an organic, not purposeful interaction, and it just changed my life and changed my career.
Anytime I hear someone say that they were introduced to yoga when they were young, like as a child or a teenager, there's always this little part of me that's like, why didn't anyone tell me? Like,
Right.
how different would life be for so many people if they were introduced to the practice when they were teenagers? Oh my gosh, it would have changed everything.
So much. So I really do love seeing these progressive schools having yoga and meditation as part of
Mhm.
their curriculum, like part of their PE classes or standalone session. I've done some, what do you call it? Help me. Not study abroad,
Oh, yeah.
career day at elementary schools to talk about yoga and fitness. And the young kids, like second grade, first grade, third grade, are just so excited to consume it. Like
Gosh,
they
but
really,
they're crazy though, aren't they? I've taught kids yoga one time. They were crazy.
yeah, it takes a bit of a switch. But then once you find that switch of that light switch, they're like, oh my goodness, like they're so serene and calm. And I'm like, okay, so maybe schools don't have nap time anymore. I would love to have nap time on a daily basis. Let me just say that as an aside. But if schools aren't having nap time, maybe we can meditate, or maybe we can do a quick yoga practice just to get refocused and be a little bit more productive in our classrooms.
Yeah, for sure. I
Yeah.
taught kids yoga one time, and I am not the candidate to teach kids yoga. It was a mistake.
It takes a special person, it's true. And I'm not sure if I'm that person either, but I did it a few times for career day, in and out.
I promise you, I am not that person.
That's so funny.
I know I had them in chair pose, and this little boy was like, "Oh my God, it's like I'm pooping." And I was like, "Oh,
Hmm.
what am I
Hmm.
even supposed to say to this?"
Man, they are so honest with everything. I'm like, no, I didn't realize that I scrunch my nose when I say my S's. Thank you, kid, for bringing that to my attention.
And now I think about it every
And
freaking time.
oh, that is so
It's so funny. So I know that a lot of the work that you have been doing recently that I've seen on social media is talking about inclusivity and equality in fitness. And I think this is, of course, with all that's transpired in 2020, this is an important conversation now, but I think it's always been an important
always.
conversation. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your thoughts and, what work you're doing in that right now.
Yeah. So if you recall, when you and I and others spent time together last year at our Bar Above certification, we spent a good chunk of time talking about inclusive language, because that has been something very important to me, very passionate. The way that we as teachers and group fitness instructors, the way that we communicate with the people in our rooms, the way that our music communicates with people taking our classes. So I've always been an advocate and pushed for us to exercise inclusive language as instructors. But with the shift in the atmosphere and within our current climate, yeah, I have been doing way more talks and discussions globally on inclusivity, diversity, and representation when it comes to the fitness industry, because it's critical. It's critical for any industry, any society, and to any workplace. And there's truly no better time than now to address the concerns and issues that have been affecting our employees and our business potential. And as I posted not long ago, Forbes reported, people love when we quote Forbes because then we just seem like such business-minded people. But Forbes reported that inclusive organizations will cultivate cultures that produce higher productivity, retention, engagement, and morale and innovation. And it just, when we hear that, when we read that, it's a no-brainer. Like, duh, of course. But for whatever reason, we're still overlooking it. And because I speak in inclusive language, I say we, everyone listening, we have overlooked it or let it pass us by somehow. So I've been advocating, especially for business people and our C-level executives in organizations, to always prioritize inclusion, diversity, and representation in all that we do so that we don't miss a great opportunity of serving people who've been underserved, underrepresented. So always just checking ourselves and asking, with any decision that we make relevant to policies or new practices or programs that we're going to introduce, always ask yourself, is this morally and ethically right? Are we missing or overlooking any group of people? And if the answer is yes to that second question, why? And how can we do better? Because we're doing a disservice to ourselves and to others if we are overlooking people or not supporting them the best way possible. And diversity and inclusion are crucial for breakthroughs and innovation and progress. Progress in every sense of what that word means. Progress in politics, progress in society, progress in business, progress in science. And diversity doesn't just have to do with a micro level, it can be a macro level, and it doesn't have to do with surface level things or what we see initially when we look at people of their physical stature or physical being, but also diversity in experience, in mindset, in knowledge. We need that on our team because we all have blind spots. And I mean, sure, we recognize that we have blind spots, and sometimes you're like, oh man, I missed that. But when you surround yourself with good doers and people who want to be a part of positive and progressive change, invite them to your table, have them on your team to fill in the blanks that you may have. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It's only good in that. Yeah.
I keep thinking about, I had a conversation with a yoga teacher. I never published it. She was planning on hosting a yoga festival for Black yogis, but because of the coronavirus, it was it was postponed and then canceled. And although we talked a lot about a lot of different things in our conversation, it was really rooted in her yoga festival. So that episode's been on hold until that's worked out, because it's just not relevant at the moment because of the festival's been canceled. But in any case, she said in that episode, and I think this is something you touched on, and then in particular, you're talking about yoga, that one thing, the yoga community tends to have a lot of whiteness surrounding it. But one thing that studios can do is invite teachers of diverse backgrounds, even guest teachers or regular studio teachers, to really start representing that inclusivity. Because I think we're missing the mark at some level, where we think just like posting a picture is enough or saying that we believe in inclusivity is enough, but we're missing the mark and that we're not actually doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's plenty of people of color and Black people who are yogis. You just got to broaden your reach to go out and get them. And if anything that this stay-at-home mandate has shown us is that if there's a will, there's truly a way. Even if we can't afford, or if it's not safe for people to travel, we can bring them in virtually, as representation. There is a way to reach people. And I suggest this when I'm doing consulting as well. Of course, if you keep posting your job description in the same portal or on the same channels, you're going to get the same type of candidates.
Yeah.
So outreach more, expand, seek out the diversity that you need. And definitely we can do that with our yoga teachers. And you and I, we are aware of, the existing conversation and articles about how the Western Hemisphere has appropriated yoga, and
Mhm.
we've gotten so far away from the traditionality of the yoga practice. And a lot of it has to do with what people are viewing as the whitewash of yoga. There's so
Mhm.
many white instructors, but not people of color. And it's a shame because I do wear rose colored glasses sometimes, talking about things that I'm passionate about, especially with yoga. I think that we all just want to be involved. Well, I can't speak for everyone. Speaking for myself, it's not to appropriate anything because, hello, I identify as a Black woman. I know enough about appropriation, and I would never do that to another culture. But it's just a beautiful thing that is life changing. So why not share it? So I do try to approach it in the purest form that I can, with the utmost respect that I have, that I know, that I'm knowledgeable of. And so, with a broader representation and a broader reach of bringing people, even reaching out to yoga schools in India, where we believe yoga originated and started, that's diversity. That's
Mhm.
inclusion. That's allowing us the opportunity to really be in the know. Because when you know better, you do better, hopefully.
Mhm. Right. Definitely. I just think about these things often in terms of appropriation because, part of my other life is working in academia. And so a lot of these conversations come up all the time about appropriation and yoga. And that is such tricky water to navigate because, like
Mhm.
you said, we would never want to appropriate the yoga teachings. And I do believe, like you said, that most yoga teachers, they know how powerful this is and they want to share that. And I do believe I think the best way to handle this is to be as pure with the teachings as you can,
Mhm.
but it's hard. It's a difficult situation to figure out how to do this. And I can only speak from the experience of a white woman, but to be a white woman and to teach something that came out of India, it's just complicated sometimes.
It is. It's tough. It's very tricky.
And I
Yeah.
don't always know what the right thing to do is. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about that?
I don't have the answer to what the right thing is. And when I speak on things like inclusion, diversity, and anti racism, I want to be very clear and intentional in saying that I don't speak for an entire race or
Right.
nation. I hope to speak well on behalf of and be able to provide tangible tips that will move the needle forward and not be a detriment. But like you, I continue to immerse myself in the yoga culture, keeping myself up to date on the yoga history and the future of yoga, the transitions that we're
Hmm.
experiencing in the present moment, but try to remain pure and always, always uphold respect first and foremost so that everyone knows I'm not trying to take ownership of anything. This is not mine, it's for everyone.
Hmm.
But what we do, we're going to do it with the utmost respect. And if someone comes to me and say, you know what, I'm offended by X, Y, and Z, I am going to listen. I want
Hmm.
people to be able to elevate their voices because for so long, I myself and other people I know have felt like their voices have been oppressed. And in my time on this planet, I don't want anyone to feel that way in my presence. So, you know what? Explain to me, teach me, guide me, lead me in what you're trying to say. And let's have an even exchange of dialogue, interpersonal skills. Let's exchange dialogue in a safe, not a space safe, but a brave space where
Mm,
we
I
feel like we can all uncover something new.
That's a really nice phrase. Not a safe space, but a brave space.
Yeah,
Hmm.
because we can't guarantee a safe space, unfortunately, but we can advocate for a brave space where everyone has a brave voice to speak up and speak out.
Hmm. The listening has been such a big conversation lately when we're talking about things like inclusivity and learning. And I had a woman on the podcast recently, and she talked a lot about listening and the difference between listening and actually hearing. And I think talking about listening as even an act of bravery is pretty vital here because, to hear someone means you have to be willing to put your guard down and
Yes.
consider their realities. And I think that takes a lot of bravery. And it's
Yeah.
a pretty big challenge for a lot of people to be able to like be quiet for a moment and to set aside their reactions and their own experiences for a minute to really start to, I was almost said listen, but that's not the right word, to absorb, really.
Yeah. Yeah. To absorb and truly be empathetic.
Mhm.
That you have to take yourself out of your own ego and out of your own shoes to truly be empathetic in a moment to hear, to absorb, to feel another person's energy and voice.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I think we got around into off topic just a little bit, but I guess coming back to appropriation of yoga, just to come full circle, I think the answer is we don't know what to do, guys.
Yeah.
Other than just be really honest with the teachings.
Honest, authentic, true, and do your research. Stay
Yeah.
read up. Yep.
Yeah, and I also think it's important to stay up to date with the things that are going wrong with yoga too, because
Yes.
some things are kind of wrong, and to I use that language like I don't want to say people are right or wrong. I mean, I do think sometimes things are clear cut, but people are doing the best they can sometimes as yoga teachers. But to be really clear on when things are starting to stray from that purity of the teachings and how we can pull them back too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that.
So, in terms of inclusivity and equality, we talked a little bit about yoga and language. What are some other things that you have been having conversations about that you might want to share with the Dharma Drops audience?
Absolutely. When I say representation, that does not just mean who's leading your yoga classes
Mm.
or who is taking your yoga classes, but also within your marketing and advertising. We know that there are barriers to entry when it comes to yoga and studios of people feeling like that is not the space for them because they don't see people who identify the way that they do. And that doesn't have to do with the color of their, doesn't have to do just with the color of their skin, but also what they view as their abilities or even disabilities, what they view as their body types and sizes. So maybe we can do better in advertising so that the communication and the touch points happen before the person even puts their hand on the door to enter our studios or our spaces. I also encourage yoga managers and studio owners to conduct regular diversity, inclusion, and bias trainings.
Mm.
And the work doesn't end just after the diversity training is over, but we all, no matter what our involvement in the studio is, we must lead by example and hold everyone accountable for their words, their actions, and to keep checking in on a regular basis and taking good care of ourselves, of our employees, of our participants, our students, and their overall wellness. And I'm a big advocate for, especially if you are in an area that is near to a university, reach out to the university or colleges because we've seen that universities have hired actual task force that center around diversity training and de-escalation and sensitivity training. And they do outreach and maybe they'll come to your studio to do a group training or a retreat day that you can even invite your yoga students to. Or if you have social workers or clinicians in your area who you can reach out to, they perform these services as well. So you don't even have to go far or pay a lot because I know that financial budgets right now are a big deal to
Yeah.
us. We're all we're
Yeah.
all quite fiscal right now and frugal, but you don't have to go far. I mean, people are right in the neck of your woods. Heck, it could even be one of your yoga students who commits their life and their work to this kind of work. Also, I love surveying because I want people to know they have a voice that is meant to be heard. So conduct employee engagement surveys to gain better understanding of your employees' perceptions and around topics as they relate to their work experience. And we do the same with our engagers, our consumers, our customers, our students. To I don't really like, I'm not a fan of structured surveys like paper and pen. Um, because that comes with some biases alone.
Yeah.
That's usually an invitation of let's just pinpoint everything that's wrong, uh, which I mean is good sometimes, but let's see what is working. What are we doing
I'm
right in our
I'm
services?
just thinking about all my students in my professional career who have, like, back in the day when they had to fill out like a paper and pen survey about the class, and it was like their opportunity to tell me everything they hated about me.
Right. I mean, goodness. It's insane. Or some people, they're just like, oh, this is dumb. Just get through it. So we don't get real
Mhm.
feedback that is useful. So if your studio uses applications of some point or of some type, or if you have like a Dropbox and encourage people, hey, just tell us after class, before class, what went well, what suggestions do you have, especially now that people have taken online classes due to COVID-19. What have you loved about other services that you've taken other than ours? And how can we incorporate those into our services? Just to better, because they've experienced something maybe you have not. And again, that's to your blinders, and that's not a fault of anyone's own. That's just how we learn. That's how we engage better. But to elevate voices and allow people to be heard. So surveying, whatever surveying looks like to you, and diving deeper, digging deeper to expand our search and recruitment for high quality and diverse talents, especially if we're doing retreats or webinars, seminars, anything like that. Just bringing in different voices and different
Mhm.
experiences just helps us to grow even more.
Hmm. I really like what you said about having regular training. And, that is, I hadn't even thought about reaching out because, I live here just a few miles from University of North Carolina, Wilmington, where I work. And I'm also a yoga teacher here in the same town. I haven't even thought about reaching out to them for training for yoga teachers. So Wilmington, North Carolina, let it be known that's happening today.
Heck yeah, absolutely. Tell
I
them Kia
had,
sent you.
yeah. You don't know her, but Kia sent me.
Right, right, right.
It's so funny. But that's a really great idea. And I think really important too, because when we're stuck in one sort of monochromatic or just one similar group, I don't even want to necessarily mean just about race, even if we're talking about ability, because I think sometimes yoga studios, for example, can get stuck in a particular type of yoga that requires certain abilities. But if we're only
Right.
talking about one group of people, we need someone to come in on the reg and remind us, right? We all need these reminders to come back. I mean, it's just like yoga. We have to keep doing the work and practicing and
Right.
reminding ourselves of the work over and over and over. So I think that's an excellent idea
Yeah.
and really feasible for any studio owner or yoga teacher who wants to bring a group together. Super feasible for them to do.
Keep doing the work. Absolutely. It is feasible.
Mhm. Totally. So tell me, Kia, how do you think that yoga and fitness can really help us navigate all that's transpired in 2020? Because it's been a lot, and I think we're all looking for some ways to keep moving forward. I can only speak for myself with this. I just released a podcast about this last week, actually. I feel like the weight of all that's happening in 2020 has just hit me in the last week or two. I was doing good up until the
Yeah.
last week or two. And I fallen out of my practice. I'm over it, So
Yeah.
I'm curious to know how we can keep moving forward through yoga and fitness.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have been experiencing the compounding effect of just lots of things piling up and building up. And then you just feel like it hits hard out of nowhere at the most inopportune moment. Um, but recognizing that everything that we are experiencing when it comes to our social, political, and economic state, there are signs of it coming. And when it comes to
Mhm.
the racial, uh, the racial uplifting of voices right now, like this has been happening to this particular country for hundreds of years, is
Mhm.
nothing new. And truly, it's about dang time People
Yeah.
are listening and shifting up and shaping up. And so we know, we've talked about, I know I've heard on your podcast, you all talk about just the science of behind the happy, healthy endorphins that are released through yoga practice and fitness engagement. So we don't have to cover that, but also just I don't want to say mental escapism, because we don't want to bury our head in the sand on any matters that are important, but just to give you that moment of reprieve, of
Mm.
lay down your burdens just for a second. Like, you don't have to be completely on 100 every part of your life, because it is exhausting. And
Mhm.
it's important for our own mental wellness and self-care that we step back for a minute, or take that coat off even just for a second, just to breathe. And that's an outlet that yoga and fitness allows for us when we engage. It's just to take a moment for yourself, to check inventory, to say, okay, to ask yourself. We're used to asking other people, how are you? Are you okay? But how often do we ask ourselves that? Maybe in our society, that's a weird thing to do. Kia, hey girl, how are you? It's like, put this woman in a straitjacket. She's talking to herself. But maybe engaging in maybe engaging in fitness and yoga will allow you that opportunity to just decompress and to just check in with your star player of, how am I doing? How am I coping? I've been pouring into so many other glasses. Am I running on empty? What do I need to do to refill my own glass? But also, fitness activity and engagement, however you do it, it's a win. Whether you're going for a walk that is free, or if you're paying to take a class at a beautiful studio, it's a win for you that you are moving your body, electrifying your energy. You just need to do it to take care of your overall well-being. That's physical, spiritual, mental, social as well. Like, just get moving, get out there, do it.
You know, it's one of those things I think we all know, but like everything, we forget and we have to come back to it and do it over and over and over again. And I've kind of fallen out of my routine. We moved into a new house. I guess it's been about a week and a half ago now. And
Mhm.
I just fallen out of routine. And
Yeah,
yesterday I went for a walk and I was like, oh, yeah, it does feel good to
it
move my
feels
body.
so good, right? Just to be in nature.
Mhm.
Oh, it's so nice.
You know, and one thing too, and I guess this may be a little bit different than what you're talking about, and it might sort of stitch these 2 points of conversation together. One thing that I think has been really cool that's happened in particular the last few weeks is there's been this sudden explosion of sharing all the people who are doing really awesome things. And I have seen more yoga teachers and fitness instructors of diverse backgrounds who are offering some of the coolest stuff
Right.
I've seen in a long time. And I think that has the opportunity to help us move forward too in
Yeah.
2020, to help, bridge the gap and to explore new ideas while also taking care of ourselves and each other too.
Right, absolutely. And I've noticed that too, the amount of collaboration that we're seeing going on in the world. Fitness, for whatever reason, has been a very competitive sport. Um,
Mhm.
and it's like, I don't know, people feel I must have the most participants, I must have the most followers. But right now, with everything that's transpiring, I am witnessing and experiencing way more outreach of, hey, can we do this together? I'm seeing people who are states apart are collaborating and fusing their businesses, and it's awesome, man. It looks good, it feels good. I'm like, right on, stay on the
Yeah.
good foot.
Yeah, it kind of feels like the way things should have always have been. I
Yeah,
don't know. I think that's sort of the message of 2020. Like
yeah.
coronavirus taught us this is the way we should have been living our lives and how we're going to continue. George Floyd and all that's
Mhm.
surrounded that, across the globe. I was going to say the country, but really across the
Right.
globe with
Yeah,
protests and
yeah,
such has really taught us, oh, these are the conversations we should have been having this whole time,
absolutely.
and I feel like 2020, that's like the message, like, hey guys, like now is the time.
Right. And I agree with you. The should haves, even when it comes to people's own personal wellness, we're witnessing people really take care of their personal hygiene and their personal wellness. There's less food waste that we're seeing on a micro level
Mhm.
within people's households. People making use of minority businesses and
Mhm.
shopping local, things that we feel like we should have been doing. But I mean, now's the time. Like, if not now, then when? Let's do it today. How about that?
That's right. If not
Welcome
now,
to the
then
movement.
when? Mhm.
Welcome
That's
to the
right.
movement.
Absolutely. So I'd love to know if there is anything else that you would like to share. I feel like we've covered a lot of territory, and if there's anything else that you want to share.
Um, Continue doing the work. Sometimes it may feel hard, it may feel exhausting, but nothing comes easy, unfortunately. And the good that we're doing, not just for ourselves, but for others, will come back around. It's good karma that we're putting into the atmosphere, and it's worth it for generations to come because this is part of our legacy. We only get one life. I think I only know in this in this realm of the world that I do know about. You only get this once, so make a good impression on it. Yeah, leave a positive legacy for other generations to come. And two quotes that have been very important in my life and have been resonating with me a lot as of late that I want to leave our listeners with. One from Fannie Lou Hamer: nobody's free until everybody's free. And then with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So, y'all, let's just be respectful of ourselves, of others, treat others with dignity, and we just maybe we'll be all right.
Kia, thanks so much for being here. Can you share with the Dharma Drops listeners where they can find you online if they want to learn more about you or follow you?
Sure, and I would love to continue this conversation with anyone who wants to engage with me. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Kia Williams, that's KIA Williams dot fitness. That's where I am on Instagram and Facebook. I also have a podcast that is a fitness and business podcast with my partner, Lauren George, that is called Fit and Fierce on the Mic. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all others. But truly, if you're interested in learning more to continue exchanging positive dialogue, I am open to it too. So let's connect.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And for those of you listening, you know where to find me on Instagram at Dharma Drops Podcast and on the internet at dharmadropspodcast.com. Kia, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of
Be well.
course. Until we meet again next time, my friends. Bye.